So another video from a question that came up from a client this week, and it's all about, it's an inquiry that we had from a Spanish resident. So it's quite a specific video that I'm going to do about a Spanish resident looking to buy a vehicle abroad. In this case specifically, it is Germany. So we've got a client who's a Spanish resident, and they're looking to purchase a vehicle from Germany and bring it here and register it in their name, because obviously the vehicles in Germany can be cheaper than buying a second-hand vehicle here in Spain. We know the second-hand market here in Spain is difficult, and we're actually going to do another video on that. So anyway, there's a few things that you have to be aware of when buying a vehicle from another EU country and bringing it into Spain to register it here. The very first thing I would say is the technical requirements to register a vehicle here in Spain. You have to check those first. So as you know, we have technical, tax and traffico. All right, there are three things. Every time we do talk about car registrations, it goes down to technical, tax and traffico. They're the three main points. Now, for a Spanish resident buying a vehicle within the EU and bringing it to Spain to register, the first thing you need to check are the technical requirements are in place for that vehicle. So what am I talking about? The vehicle must have EU conformity. The EU conformity must figure on section K of the paperwork that you use to register that vehicle. Okay, and it also must figure on the manufacturer's plate on the vehicle. So the manufacturer's plate, sometimes they're on the door seals, sometimes they're underneath the bonnet. They must have the VIN number and the EU conformity number there as well. The EU homologation, EU conformity begins with an E, so it's always a star, E, and then a number. That must figure also on the documents. All right, that's a must. Otherwise, it will not pass the ITV. Certainly here in Andalusia. Okay. If for non-residents registering vehicles, it's slightly different because they can get away with that as long as they prove their ownership vehicle for 6 months and stuff. But we're going to park that for the time being. We're talking about residents buying within the EU. Why am I bringing up this point? Well, I'll tell you why I'm bringing up this point. It's because in other EU countries, they're not as strict when registering vehicles which don't have EU conformity. So we've had a few cases where vehicles have come in from the States and they've been registered in an EU country. The left-hand drive, we recently had one which was a very nice BMW, quite new as well, got registered from the States. It was actually a write-off, got sent to Bulgaria, got fixed, and then it got registered within the EU, and then it was advertised in Germany. The client went to see it, he loved the car, he was aware of its history, but then went to buy it, and I said, let's just double check the paperwork, and it turns out the manufacturer's plate didn't have EU conformity. As a Spanish resident, he wouldn't have been able to register that vehicle, so it's great to check that it's got EU spec. Now, a lot of vehicles, when you're buying them within the EU, come with a certificate of conformity. If it comes with a certificate of conformity, then there's no need for the Spanish equivalent, which is a ficha técnica reducida. Okay, if it doesn't come with a certificate of conformity, then you will need a ficha técnica reducida. And there's plenty of articles on our website. In fact, I'm going to put a link below to one of the articles which explains what that is in the description below. Okay, so the second thing to look at is modifications. We know now when registering an EU vehicle in Spain, the ITV station here are very, very, very hot on modifications. So they don't like, if you've had if the bulbs were originally halogen and you switched them for LEDs, then they don't like that. You have to switch them back. If you've got a tow bar on the vehicle which wasn't there originally or is not included in the conformity of the vehicle, that's going to have to come off as well. So any modifications, you know, in other EU countries, they're not as strict as long as the modifications, you know, are safe. They'll pass a technical inspection. Here in Spain they won't, and certainly for a matriculation. They'll make you take them off or revert the vehicle back to its original state before the modification was made. All right. So that's the technical side of a Spanish resident buying a EU vehicle from within the EU before they come and register it in Spain. Now, the tax. Let's talk about tax. Evidently, a vehicle from within the EU doesn't have to go through customs All right, so you don't have to go through customs, pay VAT and IVA, but there could be 2 taxes applicable. All right, and well, there's 3, but I'll come with there's the third one will be when we talk about registration. So the 2 taxes that are applicable are first special registrations tax. Now, as we know, special registrations tax is based on the value, the initial value of the vehicle. It's then a coefficient applied for its age and a separate coefficient applied for the emissions of the vehicle. Okay, so some vehicles are free. If they're under 120 grams of emissions, then you don't have to pay special registrations tax. If they're above that, they'll fall into a scale of what you need to pay. Okay, so you need to check maybe before you register the vehicle with somebody how much the special registration tax is going to be. You know, so before you buy it, you might want to check that. What's the problem with that? The person, so in our case it's us, who calculates that tax will need to see the original documents of the vehicle. And obviously when you're looking for a vehicle, to buy a vehicle, they're not always possible to get hold of. You might get the specs off a website or something. So you can make a general calculation from website specs, but what you can't do from a website announcement, or website advertisement, sorry, anuncio, they say in Spanish, is you can't see whether the technical side of things is covered, and you can't see whether the paperwork side of things is covered, because you can't see sections K, and without the paperwork you can't accurately calculate the tax. So it's really hard for any company to give you a full disclose, yes, you can definitely register this here and this is the definite price, unless they see the paperwork. Okay, so when you're dealing with if you're dealing with a private individual, which I'm going to come to now regarding the tax, then they shouldn't have any problem in giving you the documents. And also if you're dealing with a company which sells vehicles, then they shouldn't have a problem either. Okay, so that's we spoke about the tax. That's a special registrations tax. Now, something that's very, very, very important to know is the structure of the paperwork from who you're buying it off. So if you're buying it from a company, a car sales warehouse or something like this, right, they more than likely provide you with an invoice, all right, with an invoice to prove that you've done the operation and how much you paid for the vehicle. Now, if that invoice is correct and that company is registered with an EU VAT number, you can waive what we call transmissions tax, which is the second tax you're going to pay on the registration of the vehicle. All right. So here in Spain, as we know, when you take possession of a second-hand vehicle, you have to pay a tax. It's called transmissions tax. Obviously, in other countries in the world, you don't have to do that. Here you do. All right. Transfer of ownership tax is known as here. Now, that's not different for a vehicle that you buy outside of the EU. As far as the Spanish tax authorities are concerned, you are a resident in Spain and you've bought a second-hand vehicle, so to register that vehicle in your name, you will need to pay the transmissions tax. If you get a valid invoice with an EU VAT number on it, and you provide traffic code at the end, we're going to talk about that now, with a translation, an official translation of that invoice, then there shouldn't be any need to pay the transmissions tax on that vehicle. If it's a private sale, then you're going to need the sales contract. If the sales contract is not in the Spanish, you're going to need translating, and you're also going to need the documents from the person who sold you that vehicle, their ID documents, because they'll probably request that just to verify the person on the contract and who figures on the documents the vehicle is who they say they are. Okay. We always advise, if you're buying a vehicle from a showroom or something in Germany, that they put the temporary registration plates, if they're providing you with those from Germany to get here, or if they're just changing the ownership over, they give you documentation in your name. That's the best advice we can give. Certainly, there's a big red flag that if you've got a vehicle that was previously owned by somebody, was sold to a car warehouse, and then they sell that car to you, if you have an invoice in the name of the company who sold that vehicle to you, but the documents are in someone else's name, okay, then that could be a problem. So make sure that if you're buying it off a company, the document is either in the company's name, which matches the invoice, or that they put it in your name. And so that's definitely good advice to do that. So where were we? So we're at technical, we've done tax, and we're doing traffic code. Traffic code, Tax, let's talk about third tax that you have to pay. Evidently, you have to pay your road tax. So before you've got around the special registrations tax, we've passed the ITV, we've paid our transmissions tax, or we've waived it because we've got the right to waive it because we've got a decent invoice for translation, etc. So now you have to pay your local road tax. Remember, you pay your local road tax based on the amount of what quarter of the year you're in. So if you're in third quarter, you'll only pay for the last 2 quarters. Okay, the following year, that road tax will be issued for the whole year. Normally, depending on where you're registering, the letter will be sent out to you, your address, and then you can use that letter to then go to the tax office and say, right now I want to pay it from my bank account. Normally, especially here in Andalusia, you can't pay it through your bank account straight away. You have to receive that first tax payment from the following year after registering the vehicle. All right. And then when you come to register at Trafico, remember, again, what we were saying, you have to prove that the vehicle is yours, either with a sales contract, proof of the person who sold it to you, or a valid invoice. But yeah, look, you know, it is something that people look to do. They look to import cars. The second-hand market here in Spain is extremely expensive. What we have found is that at the newer end of the market, there's better deals than at the bottom end. So if you take the new price of a vehicle and look what it depreciates over the first 4 years, is actually quite significant and relative to places like the UK. So the moment you drive off the forecourt, it depreciates. But at that 4-year point, 4 or 5 year point, then it seems to slow down. So if you're looking for a nearly new vehicle, I'll give you an example there. A Kia, which was recently purchased, which was 25 grand new, a 4-year-old vehicle with 35,000 kilometers on it. In Kia, they had it for 17k. Okay, so that was, I mean, in the UK it might be 12k, I don't know, but that was quite in Spanish terms, that was quite a big drop, 8k in the first 4 years for a relatively new vehicle here in Spain. But then they had another vehicle which was 11 years old with 150k on the clock, again a Sportage, the old model, and they wanted 12 grand for that vehicle. So, you know, looking comparatively, it's better off spending a bit more money and getting a nearly new vehicle. You seem to get a lot more for your money. Plus, obviously, if it's a Kia or something like that, or a Dacia, you're getting your warranty with that as well. So, bringing vehicles in from abroad, brilliant, but just make sure you do your technical, your tax and your Trafico checks beforehand. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe here or wherever the subscribe button is, and share this video if you found it useful, so people can find our channel and see more useful videos. We're going to be doing a few more. So this year we really want to kick the channel off. So yeah, thanks for watching and give us a thumbs up.